The issue I tried to cover in that particular article is perhaps best described as how to align politics and policy with science, with particular reference to climate and climate change. One of the interesting observations about the climate science community in recent years is their growing disenchantment and frustration with politics and policy pertaining to climate change. Increasingly, climate scientists offer observations which demonstrate their frustration with the speed with which certain, they think, necessary policies are implemented to, for example, make some headway in efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And these scientists, in expressing their disenchantment with democracy, essentially talk about varying a theme known from Al Gore's movie, An Inconvenient Truth. They talk about an inconvenient democracy. They talk about the extent to which democratic institutions fail science and its discoveries. Yeah, my research in this respect, in respect to climate change policies and climate change, focuses on the question of how to govern a warmer planet. And here we have the contrast between those who argue for more authoritarian governance, top-down governance, in the hope that such top-down governance will be more effective in achieving some of the goals, such as halting greenhouse gas emissions, and those who argue that what is needed is not less but more democracy in order to cope with the growing possibilities that a warmer climate and a warmer planet may throw up all kinds of difficulties. Well, what I find is interesting is that contrary to what many climate scientists seem to argue, perhaps for their excuse or exculpation, one could argue they are not social scientists after all. What I find interesting is that in general, democracy are far more efficient and effective in dealing with complex problems they face. Democracies, in other words, always find a way of getting out of tight places. Democracies are capable of learning. Democracies are capable of throwing away policies which do not work. So I think democracies and enhancing democracy will be a much more effective way of coping with what are likely some of the more serious consequences of climate change. Well, the key message is essentially the message I just referred to. What we need is more rather than less democracy in order to cope with, in order to deal with some of the more difficult possibilities of climate change in the next couple of decades.